You're a kid, you're a squid, you're a kid now. That was the motto of Nintendo's weird new IP which would be coming to the Wii U. Splatoon is on my mind again right now because sadly the servers will be shutting down on April 8th, 2024. This will coincide with all of the online services for the Wii U and Nintendo 3DS shutting down on the same day. When I started thinking about Splatoon again, it made me realize how incredible it is that this game somehow became one of Nintendo's biggest franchises. It's such a weird and unique game. A multiplayer shooter made by Nintendo released on their least popular home console ever. That doesn't sound like the start of a franchise that would sell over 30 million copies to me, but somehow it is. Today's video will be a retrospective on the history of Splatoon, and I'll also be dusting off the Wii U to play the game again before the servers are gone. Let's start at the beginning. The year is 2013, and Nintendo's brand new console, the Wii U, was struggling. After a strong start in the holiday of 2012, the Wii U had a massive game drought throughout early 2013. From January to July 2013, there was almost nothing to play, and things were not looking good. But behind the scenes, Nintendo was cooking. Shintaro Sato was working as a member of the Animal Crossing team when he created a prototype for a 4v4 territory control game featuring ink. Right away the concept seemed fun, but they struggled to figure out who the characters would be. At one point it almost featured Mario alongside Flood from Sunshine, but the developers really wanted to make something new, and so they kept pushing on. They used rabbits for a while, which looks pretty cute based on this concept art, but right away people asked the question, why are rabbits shooting ink? So the next logical step was to make the characters into squids. Not gonna lie, I actually really like how this squid concept art looks, but there were concerns about the wide appeal of these characters. Eventually, they landed on the idea we all know and love, featuring human characters that could also switch to squids. Development of Splatoon was not easy, with Shigeru Miyamoto once saying that the game had no appeal. However, the development team was determined to make this work. This team was young, and they weren't afraid to take risks. Due to the younger ages of the development team, it seemed like they weren't as determined to stick to Nintendo's usual formulas. Many of the developers admitted to playing shooter games on competing hardware and wanted Nintendo to have a spot in that genre. However, they knew a Nintendo shooter couldn't be like all the others, which is how they came up with the idea for Splatoon. Many of the different features of Splatoon are not particularly complicated or even new, but it's the way they are able to present these ideas that made Splatoon so genius. For example, ducking from enemy fire has always been present in shooters, but instead of simply having your character lay down, the Splatoon characters would turn into squids and duck below the ink. Even something as simple as reloading was reworked for Splatoon. Instead of simply pressing a button to reload, you would have to duck under the ink in squid mode. I feel like this is an easy to overlook feature, but it's so crucial to Splatoon's gameplay. It keeps the game always feeling super fast paced. In most shooters, when you reload, you have to hide, or at least slow down your movement significantly. But in Splatoon, you actually move faster in squid form, while simultaneously getting your ammo back. This keeps the player engaged at all times, and can lead to some unique possibilities in gunfights. On top of that, movement shooters were getting pretty big around this time, with Call of Duty being in the advanced movement era, and new games like Titanfall releasing. And somehow, Splatoon actually managed to fall into that category as well, allowing you to experience some light advanced movement by going up walls that were sprayed with your ink. I'm only acting surprised here because it's just very out of the ordinary for Nintendo to make games that actually fit within what the market is craving. I think the younger development team really helped this game in the long run, even if some of the veterans at the company were skeptical. Splatoon was officially revealed by Nintendo at E3 2014, and right away, players were intrigued. People were excited to see such a new and unique idea hitting the gaming scene. However, there were some concerns. Nintendo's online services have never been their strong suit, so seeing them go all in on a multiplayer game left some people feeling a little uneasy. Others worried about the game finding a large enough audience to keep player counts active, partly because the game was so different from everything else, but partly because it was coming out on a console that not many people owned. For me personally, I remember this developer interview really selling me on the game. Featuring developers from the team sitting in the Kyoto Aquarium, their enthusiasm for the game won me over. I could tell this team was highly passionate about the project and truly believed in it. Over the coming months leading up to Splatoon's release, Nintendo continued showing off more and more about the game, and the hype was super high when it finally released. Splatoon released in North America on May 29, 2015 to rave reviews, and the fans were eating it up. Right away, it was clear that Splatoon had clicked with players and Nintendo had found a winning formula. I remember being there day one when Splatoon released, and I was so excited. I sat in class all day watching the clock, just waiting to get home and play. I loved the game so much. As a huge fan of multiplayer shooters and a huge Nintendo fan, it felt like the perfect game for me. I will admit I definitely didn't stick with Splatoon long term as much as other people did, but I certainly played my fair share of hours. The game was a huge commercial success as well, with the game selling nearly 5 million copies. That is a fantastic number for any game, but for a new IP, that is incredible. And just to put it in perspective for you, the entire Wii U console itself only sold 13.5 million units. So that means roughly 37% of all people who owned a Wii U console also bought Splatoon. That is an unbelievably high attach rate. The only Wii U games that sold better were Mario, Smash Bros, and the game that literally came bundled with the console. Since then, the series has continued to grow larger and larger, with Splatoon 3 garnering the biggest success of them all. When Splatoon 3 launched in Japan, it sold 3.45 million copies in the first 3 days. This made it the fastest selling video game ever in Japan, a title Splatoon 3 would hold until Pokemon Scarlet and Violet passed it a year later. It was always clear that Splatoon was popular, but I don't think I realized just how popular it was until Splatoon 3 released. For a lot of people, myself included, this sales record officially cemented Splatoon as one of Nintendo's biggest franchises. I'm not sure anyone, even Nintendo themselves, could have expected that when they released the original game back in 2015. After reliving all the memories I had from Splatoon's release back in 2015, I knew I had to go back one last time before the servers were gone. So I hooked up the Wii U and logged in for some matches of Splatoon. Unfortunately, I couldn't get back into my old Nintendo account, so my level was reset. This meant I didn't have any of the good weapons or abilities. And everyone I was playing against was the exact opposite of this, with most of them being close to or at max level. And this worried me. I worried the game may not be fun considering these circumstances, and I also worried I wouldn't even be able to get any good footage for this video because it would just be me getting steamrolled the whole time. But that actually didn't happen. Despite all of this, and despite the half-decade break, the game felt natural right away. And I think that is a huge testament to what makes Splatoon so great, and what made it fun for such a wide audience. You don't have to be a great player to have fun and to impact a match. Most PvP shooters just focus on who can get the most kills, and usually boils down to who has the best aim. But Splatoon throws that out the window because you can still positively affect a match without getting a single kill. Simply staying alive and covering as much of the map as you can will actually help your team considerably more than going out and just getting a bunch of kills. I also loved how quick the matches were, with each only lasting about 3.5 minutes. That really helped avoid any frustration because even if your team was heavily outmatched, it was over quickly and you were right back into the next game. Another thing I forgot about was how good the Wii U gamepad is for this game. The gamepad is a sad little thing most of the time, with a lot of games, even from Nintendo themselves, clearly not knowing how to use it effectively. But Splatoon is not one of those games. When you die, you can immediately look down at the gamepad and choose your next spawn point. By simply tapping on the icon of one of your teammates, you jump right back into the action. This mechanic in general helps with the speed of the game I praised earlier, and it's even more helped by the gamepad implementation. The first few times I died, I found myself forgetting that it was even an option, but after a few games, I was instinctively looking right down at my gamepad every time I needed to respawn. I know it may seem simple, but to me, it's one of the best uses of the gamepad we ever got. And although Splatoon 2 and 3 certainly improved on a lot of things, this gamepad feature is something that they just simply cannot replicate. Another thing that impressed me during my return to Splatoon was some of the live service elements present in the game, such as the playable maps changing every hour. That also reminded me of the incredibly fun Splatfest events they used to do. And then I thought to myself about the fact that this game came out in 2015. Live service games certainly already existed at that time, but they were not nearly as prevalent as they are today. It's pretty crazy looking back and seeing that Nintendo was actually kind of ahead of the curve on this one. It's another example of Splatoon going against a lot of what we would expect from Nintendo, which I just continue to think is so cool. I had such a great time going back to Splatoon, and it honestly made me feel sad knowing that in a few days days, it wasn't going to be playable anymore, and it made me regret all the years I spent not playing it. In my opinion, Splatoon represents everything that makes Nintendo great. All of Nintendo's qualities that have helped make them one of the most successful video game companies ever get showcased by Splatoon. I think Nintendo is always at their best when they think outside of the box and aren't afraid to try something new. Nintendo isn't exactly known for having the best online services, so releasing a brand new IP that relied on it seemed like it could be a disaster. Not to mention, in order for a multiplayer game to thrive, it needs players, and Splatoon would be releasing for the Wii U, which did not exactly have a lot of players. But guess what? Nintendo didn't care, because they had an idea they believed in. And boy did it work out. I kind of feel like Nintendo hasn't taken a big risk like this in a while. Don't get me wrong, the Switch generation has been absolutely incredible, arguably Nintendo's best ever. But if there's one criticism I could give, I feel like they didn't take any big risks or introduce many big new IPs. I mean, I guess they tried with ARMS, but that didn't really work out. I don't know, I'm not trying to make this into a rant about modern day Nintendo, especially since I'm very happy with the state of the company and looking forward to what their next console has in store. I'm just trying to emphasize why Splatoon is so special. If you're watching this video within the first day or so that it's been released, then you still have some time to go back and play Splatoon or any of your other favorite online 3DS and Wii U games. But if you're watching this after April 8th, then sadly, it's too late. I grew up with both of these consoles, and the thought of not being able to access any of their online modes anymore is really depressing. I guess I can't really sit here and complain too much though, considering I didn't even use these online services for years until this video. So I can understand why Nintendo is shutting them down, but it doesn't make it feel any less sad. Overall, my time revisiting Splatoon reminded me why I loved it so much back in 2015, and I'm super happy I got to experience it one last time. I would love to hear about your favorite Splatoon memories in the comments below. And if you're interested in the Wii U, you should check out my TikTok account, where I'm doing a series in which I try to recollect my entire Wii U collection that I sold as a kid. Thanks for watching.